Good morning. This is Deborah Cargo coming to you live from Valdosta, Georgia, and we're going to start our series in the book of Esther, starting in the first chapter of Esther. And I'm looking at 10 weeks since there are 10 chapters of this book, and I pray that you will learn something as well as I will learn something from this study, and that it will help us to strengthen our faith, and it will. And Lord, we just come to you right now. We just thank you for this day. We thank you for this Bible study, and help us to understand your word. Teach us what we need to know, and just guide us all the way, and put the words in my mouth you want me to say in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. The book of Esther is an unusual book in that it seems to stand alone. It is not connected to historical chronology of the Hebrews. This is a beautiful story of how a young Jewish girl saves her people. It is unknown who penned the book of Esther. Many scholars do not like to include the book of Esther in the Bible because it does not directly mention the name of God. In this book, however, we see the hand of God at work to save his people in a foreign land. The setting for this is Persia. It happens during the years of captivity of the Israelites. One of the lessons to be learned in this is you reap what you sow. The Feast of Purim is instituted in this little book. In my opinion, this is a very spiritual book. It causes us to see God, even though it does not call his name. Esther 1, verse 1. Now it came to the pass in the days of Xerxes, this is Xerxes would reign from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces. In Greek, his name is Xerxes. He is Persian king, mentioned in Ezra 4:6. Uh, Xerxes, I was the king of Persia and the husband of Esther. The Jews, Xerxes succeeded his father. There's Hostifus in the book of Esther portrays the king as ruling a vast empire, being very wealthy, being central, continually giving feasts, and being cruel and accurately lacking in foresight. Verses 13 through 22. Verse 2. That in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shechem, the palace. Shechem was the ancient capital of Elam. The city reached its height of importance as residence and especially as the winter capital of the kingdom of Persia. Uh, in fact, the royal palace, which later figured prominently in the story of Esther. In fact, most of the events recorded in the book of Esther took place in Shechem, which was in Shechem. The winter residence was one of four capital cities. The other three included Babylon, Ecbatana, and Persepolis. Verses 3 and 4. Feasting is a fragrant theme in Esther. This 180-day feast was staged to present the king's wealth and present his people of his ability to carry out a campaign against Greece. Success would make him the supreme ruler of the world of that day. Verse 3. In the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the province before him. Verse 4 through 12. Herodotus refers to this as at a time when Xerxes laid plans for the great invasion of Greece. Along with him were military and civil leaders during the 144 days. At the conclusion, a 7-day drinking feast was held, with the queen Vashti holding a separate feast for the women guests. On the last day of the feast, the drunken king summoned the queen, perhaps to make a lewd display of her before his guests, but she refused to obey. The name Vashti is daughter of Otanus, who has supported Darius in his bid for the throne. Possibly he had other queens whose names have not come to light, or she had alternative names. Verse 4, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom in the honor of his excellent majesty many days, 104 days. Xerxes was the fourth king of the Persian monarchy and was far richer than all. Well, I had something. Well, excuse me. It's springtime, allergy time. Okay, forgive me for that. Okay, what was I at? And for which these his nobles might be called together as to have their advice, so to animate them to come in the more readily into the expedition by showing them the riches he was possessed of. For to none of the kings of Persia does this largeness of riches better belong than to Xerxes, and the honor of its excellent majesty, the grandeur he lived in, the pomp and splendor of his court. It was the most grand and magnificent of all the kings of the Medes. And this he did many days, even 104 days, to which 7 more being added, as in the following verse. It made 187, the space of full 6 months. This 180 days is a lengthy time of festivity in their land. Possibly a few of the governors and nobles would come, and when they left, another group would come. We're not told for sure about, but 180 days is a long time for one party to last. He was showing off his wealth and power to the subordinate rulers of his province. Verse 5, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present, and Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, even days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. The palace was in Shushan, and served as one of the king's lavish winter residences. It was also the site of one of Daniel's visions in Daniel 8, verse 2. Remains of this palace have been discovered in the modern day city of Shush in Iran. Verse 6. Where were white, green, and blue hanging fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple with the silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. The fashion in the houses of the great on festive occasions was to decorate the chambers from the middle of the wall downward with damask or velvet hangings of colors suspended on hooks or taken down at pleasure. The beds were of gold and silver, that is, the couches on which, according to Oriental fashion, the guests reclined, and which were either formed entirely of gold, silver, or inlaid white with ornaments of those costly metals stood on an elevated floor of party-colored marble. Verse 7, and they gave them drink in vessels of gold. The vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. And royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king, such as the king was able to give the best he had. And that in great plenty, the wine the kings of Persia used to drink, as Strabo relates, was Shavonian wine, or wine of Helbon, as it is called. See notes on Ezekiel 27, verse but by the wine of the kingdom, as it may be rendered, it meant wine of the country. The wine of Xerxes is reckoned the best in Persia. The fact that the drinking cups were of gold just shows the extreme wealth of the Persian king. Verse 8, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. According to the law, Xerxes gave to its officers next mentioned, which was not to oblige any man to drink more than he chose, according to the custom of his body. That is, as a man is able to bear it, so they drank. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure, to let them have what wine they would, but not force them to drink more than what was agreeable to them. It was usually understood that the officers must all drink. This generally led to many getting drunk. It is interesting to me that the etiquette of the king here allowed each person to decide for himself whether he would drink or not. It appears the king wanted to treat all these people as guests and not as his subjects. Verse 9. Also Vashti the king made a feast for the women and the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. She gave birth to Ahasuerus' third son, who later succeeded his father Ahasuerus on the throne in Ezra 7 verse 1. This shows that the man and woman have separate feasts. Verse 10 through 12, the king's anger was aroused probably because of embarrassment. Verse 10, on the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mahusma, Bertha, Abana, Bigda, Habakkuk, Zethar, and Carcass, the seven chamberlains, that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king. He commanded them, as worded sometimes rendered, and such persons were made use of the eastern countries to wait upon woman, and so were proper to be sent on the king's errand to the queen. So we see in verse 11, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with a crown royal to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on, not against her will or by force, but they were sent to let her know it was the king's pleasure that should come to him immediately, with a crown royal that is upon her head, to make her look the more grand and majestic, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look upon, which was not wisely done, neither was it comely or safe. On the seventh day of the feast, it seemed the king had too much to drink, and asked 7 of his eunuchs to go and get the queen. He wanted to exhibit her before the man at his party to show her great beauty. We may assume that he wanted to remove her veil of covering. He was very proud of all his possessions, and he counted the queen as part of his possession. To present the queen in such a manner as this was a breach in Persian etiquette. Verse 12, but the queen refused to come at the king's command by his chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Her reason is not recorded, although suggestions have included that her parents would have involved lewd behavior for drunken men, that she was still pregnant. That makes sense. Verse 13, and the king said to the wise man, which knew the times, for so the king's manager all that knew law and judgment. The wise men which knew the time were a part of the traditional institution that were consulted by Pharaoh from Genesis 41, verse 8, and were present in the book of Daniel 2, verse 2. The times were strictly propitious occasions for action according to the stars, that is astrology. Even in his heated anger, he did not act hastily. He left the judgment of what her punishment should be to the law of the land. The king wanted to do what was right in this case. Verse 14. And the next unto him was Karshina, Sheba, I'm hoping I'm saying these right, the seven princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, which sat the first in the kingdom. They were his trusted advisors. Next to them were the seven princes. All of them sat near the king at the table of the feast and were treated with great respect. Verse 15, what shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she had not performed the commandment of the king by the chamberlains. The king desired to know what law was provided in such a case as hers, and what to be done according to it. Because she had not performed the commandment of the king by the chamberlains, as this was the crime, disobedience to his command, he would have those who had knowledge of the law consider what punishment was to be inflicted on her for it, according to former laws, usages, and customs, or as reason and justice required. It being a festival, and they heated with wine with no objection to a consultation on this head. For it was the manner of the Persians at festivals, and when inflamed with wine to consult and determine about matters of the greatest moments. Verse 16. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes. Vashti queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. Excuse me. Who was the last and perhaps the least and youngest of the counselors, it being appointed by the king according to the latter. Targum that when his counselors sat, the least should give their counsel first. Just as lesser ranking judges and the youngest peers would give their opinion in a case first. The public shame that she had brought on the king would affect the entire kingdom. A king could not expect the people to do as he commanded unless his queen set the example of obedience. So in verse 17, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes when it shall be reported. The king commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. It will soon be spread all over the king's dominions and reach the ears of the wives of all his subjects. I'm sorry about that, y'all. And become their general talk everywhere, so that they shall despise their husband in their eyes, make light of their authority, refuse subjection to them, slight their commands, and neglect to yield obedience to them, and so not give them the honor that is due to them. When it shall be reported, the king commanded the queen to be brought in before him, and she came not. Was disobedient to his commands, refused to go along with the chamberlains sent by the king to fetch her. The husband was the absolute ruler over his wife and children in this heathen land. The queen's act might cause all the women to rebel against her husband. Verse 18, likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen. There shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. Verse 19, if it pleases the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti comes no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. Verse 20, and when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. Verse 21. And the same pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. The haste of impulse can make anyone waste his or her decision. In a moment of weakness, the king was persuaded to declare a law that could not be broken, a law he would soon regret. The laws of the Persians and the Medes later figured prominently in the story of Daniel. They all decided this was a good solution to a difficult problem. It would also let all of the king's subjects know that the king did not let Vashti get away with this. Verse 22. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, and to every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and it should be published according to the language of every people. Persia was a country that lived by different rules than our country. The Bible teaches that the father should be the ruler of his own house. This does not mean that he is to be a tyrant. However, it also is speaking of the family unit. This is not something that should have been a law of the land. Morality cannot be legislated. Family unit with the father as the head is symbolic of our heavenly relationship with our Father. Till next week, I hope that was getting us to we see what happened with the king and his first wife. We will get into Esther real soon. Next week, I'm going to do another live broadcast. I might do it at 10 o'clock because I'm shaking right now. So until next week at 10 o'clock, God bless you and have a great day.